I'm so excited to talk with you about the astrology of this week, Monday, December 15th through Thursday, December 18th. The sun is squaring Saturn and Venus is trine to Chiron. I forgot my stylus today, so I'm going to have to point and I will circle on the program as we go as well. Um, there is more to it than just those two transits, though. I think it's important to talk about what's happening here in context and how all of these planets are sort of interacting with each other and the role that Jupiter, exalted in Cancer, is playing in all of this. We're coming also up to this powerful, expansive new moon in Sagittarius soon, and also the winter solstice. So, the fact that this week sets the stage for all of that makes it sort of that much more significant. So, let's get started officially. I'm going to go ahead and put the Sun Saturn square up here for us. Oh my gosh, you know what? I don't have the right chart from the 13th, not from the 15th. I meant to have it from the 15th. I can change that really quickly. I'm going to change it really quickly, even though we're on here live. I think it's worth it to do. Yep, that's all we need to do. I'm so sorry about that. I'm glad that I caught it. I'm looking at it going, but the sun isn't quite square Saturn yet, because that was a chart from the 13th. But now we have a chart from the 16th. So sorry about that, friends. Now we can see. I'm going to go ahead and mark the chart. Sorry, I still had that set up from an old video from our last time that we met. Okay, so we have the sun here in Sagittarius. I love all the energy coming in from Sagittarius right now. I think it's really helpful. There are some potential challenges with Sun square to Saturn for sure. And as much as I called this seeing the progress and finding the optimism, that's sort of a very light, bright title. There are some potential challenges. We can be seeing the lack of progress too when we look at the progress, and we might be searching a little bit for the optimism, but not really. Really, what I want to say about that optimistic side is just the way in which all of these connections from Sagittarius at this time bring in such a nice positivity to these different things that we're working through, some of which are really quite serious. For example, Saturn. We have Saturn here in Pisces, working through the final degrees of Pisces before Saturn and Neptune move over into Aries very soon. Saturn will enter Aries on February 13th, February 14th. So just working through these final degrees here for the last time. Um, Saturn entered Pisces in March of 2023. And wherever we have Saturn, it's interesting to think about how that's a place where we're doing the work. We're figuring out a way to do the things in this house or related to these planets in a way that is more sustainable. We're doing the work to get themes around those life areas, those planets, to a better place and to into a system or a routine. We're taking responsibility. We're maturing that part of our lives and getting it to a place where uh, it's functioning better, where it's more sustainable. And I think that Saturn in Pisces has been an especially interesting process because wherever we have Pisces, sometimes we don't tend to be real disciplined there. It can be a part of the chart that ultimately we can experience so many wonderful things. Um, and where once we have some mastery of Pisces stuff, what comes in is really, really beautiful. but sometimes that can be a little bit more difficult to achieve. It can be a little more difficult to achieve our full potential in the Pisces part of our chart. And part of the reason for that is the sort of two fish swimming in different directions side of things, side of the nature that is the symbol for Pisces. This symbol here is sort of two fish moving in different directions. I really should do a video sometime where we go over these different glyphs and talk about them and draw them and talk about what they mean and how I remember them. Uh, I will do that sometime. I think that's a good idea. Uh, so, yeah, Pisces sometimes, wherever we have Pisces in our chart, is a place where maybe we're not that great at finding routines, at achieving our full potential, at sort of taking responsibility, being mature, putting one foot in front of the other day after day. So I think that Saturn moving through here has actually been really interesting and helpful for many. It wasn't always easy, but we were able to find some discipline, some responsibility, some structure in an area of our life where maybe we aren't usually, where we kind of lack organization or lack structure. And so, as much as, sometimes that's the thing with Saturn, it's like you have to do a lot of work. And so it can feel like, oh man, Saturn's coming in here and Saturn's moving across this planet, or Saturn is moving into this configuration in my chart or across this house. And it can feel like, oh no, but it's really just because a lot of effort is going to be put in there. But that's not a bad thing if we end up um, reaping a lot of rewards from that as well, right? If it moves something in our life forward to a better and different place than where it was before. So, Saturn wrapping up this part of the chart right now, not just this week, but as we're going through the end of the year and even into January. You know, I we're putting the final touches on that piece of transformation that we've been working on since March of 23. So it might be interesting to think about uh, something that you've been working on since March of 2023. You may have really achieved something in some part of your life where you hadn't before, because you found a way somehow in a place where you historically haven't, you know? And I think that it's interesting as well that this is happening as also Neptune is wrapping up the time in Saturn. That makes it that much more significant and important. The fact that Saturn and Neptune are sort of holding hands as they cross from the Pisces part of the chart into the Aries part of the chart is not nothing. I feel like Saturn has really been helping these outer planets sort of move back into the old part of the chart and finish up business that we have left over from the first part of the decade, from earlier even than that, before stepping into this new era. As these outer planets are changing signs, we're sort of changing chapters in the history book, right? And maybe not even just chapters, maybe units. We may be moving on to sort of a new unit, a new time. We can see that so much with the technology around us, with the way things are changing. And that's happening for us individually as well. And there are multiple potentials of every signature. So the fact that Saturn and Neptune are here together sort of brings it to that level, that if it was just Saturn moving from Pisces to Aries, it wouldn't be the same. But the fact that all three of the outer planets, Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus, are all wrapping up their time in one sign and beginning another right now feels especially significant. So what's happening with the sun here this week is that it's shining its light over on this Saturn, and eventually it will move along to Neptune as well. And you could even say that that's within orb this week, the Neptune square. So everything's sort of dealing with Saturn now as it moves out of Sagittarius, and then dealing with Neptune. Uh, so it's sort of shining a light on those things that I just said, right? On these ways in which we've taken responsibility, on this place where we were able to make some progress in a place where historically maybe we haven't, place where we've been able to find some structure, and also just sort of the intense, like era ending nature of the Saturn and Neptune conjunction. And Saturn is connecting by trine still as well with this Jupiter exalted in Cancer. And I think that that is also carrying the signature of this is an important moment in time. This is a moment in time that started years ago, and it's one that is now moving sort of quickly. Um, Saturn and Jupiter were conjunct in December of 2020, and they meet every 20 years, and they were changing elements, just like the outer planets are changing elements. And now they're in this first trine formation. So they're remembering this energy of their conjunction, and now they're really able to move forward and make progress on it. But we have Saturn back here. We have Saturn back in Pisces, forward moving though. And the sun is sort of illuminating all of this progress. And the new structures that we've built, we're understanding how they potentially help us to expand. And it's good to always see these highest potentials. I'm going to talk about some of the more sort of challenging sides of that, how we might also be seeing some of the limits and all of that, but I'm just sort of putting this all up here at once. And everything does have multiple potentials. And all this Sag energy in the sky is loaning us some real optimism this week and just a more positive way of seeing things, an ability to be hopeful, to believe in ourselves, to believe in others, that I do think we can carry through the week. Even into more difficult parts of the astrology, I think the assist is coming from that Sagittarius lightness and brightness and belief in others, belief in oneself. We're able to see things a little bit better now about that Saturn and Neptune work that we've been doing and that we're doing. And the fact that the sun is also carrying a little bit of okay, let's take a look at what you did. You know, it's not a big deal. You don't have to have accomplished everything. We'll still be proud of you, even if you just made a lot of progress in a place where you usually don't. I know for me, if I think about the Pisces part of my chart, I can definitely see ways in which I made progress and I can see ways in which I didn't. And the Sagittarius sun is sort of illuminating maybe those ways in which we did and the ways in which we didn't, but helping us to be a little more optimistic and okay about it. And I think that the Saturn trine to Jupiter, it's also showing us our progress sort of over the longer term because it's connecting with that. And we could be seeing our limits for sure, but maybe we're more okay with that because of that sort of Sagittarius positive energy. But yeah, it could be helping us to see where we couldn't do it, where we didn't do it, where there's a limit, where there's a wall. Um, yes, the sun square to Saturn can sort of help us see the limits to what we're trying to do or what we tried to do. It could also suggest sort of a feeling of pressure to sort of prove yourself in some way. Maybe with authority figures, or maybe you're your own authority figure, but there's sort of an authority figure signature potentially associated with this, and that feeling like you need to prove yourself. We've done so much work, and there could be this week a sense of like wanting others to see it, or feeling like it's difficult to get others to see it, or just wanting that approval from others, or maybe getting a little bit of pressure from others, that authority figure thing. It's like we're confronting our realization of the limits. We're also confronting in that, though, the realization of what we did and where we are and how much we've grown, but we're also realizing the limits of that potentially. Saturn is amazing at sort of um, assessing things and sort of making the long-term consequences clear to us one way or the other, right? So we might sort of be seeing that like, oh, here are sort of the potential long-term consequences of this. And here are maybe the potential long-term consequences of this other side of it. For better or worse, we might be able to have that perspective a little bit more this week. But I do think that all of the Sagittarius energy is helping us to face it with hope and with acceptance. We really don't have to be perfect. If you made progress since March of 2023 in one or two parts of your life where historically you haven't really made a lot of progress or it's been difficult, that's a huge deal. And I think a lot of us did with Saturn and Pisces. Being able to move any of those pieces forward is a huge accomplishment. So I think it's good right now with this sun sort of illuminating that signature to think about what you've done since 2023 and maybe take a moment to tell yourself that you did a good job, where you did a good job. Because, too often we don't take those moments to look at something and go, nice job there. We just move right on to the next thing that we need to worry about. So I do think that the end of this year has such strong reflection vibes, with Saturn and Neptune and with Uranus too. Um, it's really a good end of the year, and it does sort of extend even a bit into January, where we're really feeling those endings. We're really feeling like a chapter is closing and another is opening. I also want to add in here what's going on between Venus and Chiron. I'm just going to kind of take this and dim it a little bit because Venus is sort of hiding behind there. So let me just sort of turn down the volume on that signature. And then we're going to add in this Venus trine Chiron because that's a really nice one to talk about as well. So we have Venus here also in Sagittarius coming into a trine with Chiron. You can see Venus will eventually also move through this square with Saturn and with Neptune, right? But just not quite time for that yet. So just taking it a piece at a time, although I'm very tempted to get into the weekend and next week because we're looking at the new moon in Sagittarius and then right behind it the winter solstice, the sun moving into Capricorn and this winter solstice. So it's quite a moment of astrologically. It's a really interesting signature around that solstice. So, in a way, this week is sort of a little bit calmer in comparison to that. I think it's a great time to do this reflection, to sort of note our progress for better or worse, for healing here. And that's what I want to say with Chiron. So, Venus in Sagittarius, trining Chiron in Aries. There's some healing relationship potential with this for sure. We're working with Venus, we're working with Chiron. And it could be for finances as well in some way, or for aesthetics in some way, the way things look. It's like we're able to see paths where we can heal through a feeling of expansion. And that makes me think about optimism too, what we were just talking about, and using that Sagittarius energy to reflect on what we've done with Saturn and Pisces. There's sort of like a healing through a feeling of freedom and options and expansion and high ceilings and a long, exciting path ahead. Seeing all of these potentials, maybe seeing all of the potentials that are going to come in as Saturn and Neptune move into Aries. It's such a pure potential moment with those two planets moving there. As a matter of fact, I just want to say that my friend Corinne and I tomorrow, she's an astrologer as well, we're going to be recording a special episode, a special video on Saturn and Neptune in Aries for 2026. because it is by far the most important transit of the year, probably the most important transit of the decade, or certainly one of them anyway. And she's a wonderful, great astrologer, and I really wanted her perspective. I wanted to talk with her about it, and I wanted to share that conversation with all of you. So I'll be recording that tomorrow, and I will post it soon. Um, Probably, I hope very, very soon. We'll see. We'll see when that comes together. Hopefully, the end of the week, or over the weekend, or early next week. Okay. So, this Venus trine Chiron, healing through expansion, healing through freedom, healing through enjoyment, potentially, through having a little bit of fun. Um, you know, just don't overdo it with any of those things, because we are talking about Sagittarius here. So, sometimes Sagittarius energy, which we have quite a lot of right now with the Sun in Sag and Venus and Mercury. Um, especially with a trine like this, Sagittarius energy can overdo a good thing. More of a good thing is a better thing, and that's actually not true. So enjoy that feeling of feeling a little bit better about something through being able to see those highest potentials a little bit more. It's like we're able to think about what we've healed, think about what we've done, think about the progress we've made, and take stock and say, okay, here's where it worked, and I'm proud of myself. And let me really take a minute to acknowledge that. And here's a place where maybe I still have a little more work to do. And I'm going to try this, and I'm going to do my best, and we'll see what happens. You know, I think there's a lot of confidence potentially this week, and enjoyment and healing potential, and we may also be intensely feeling sort of the closing energy as that Saturn and Neptune are illuminated, just as we're moving through the middle of December here, as people, and feeling that closing, that 2025 sort of beginning to come to a close. We might see the limits a little bit of what we can do or what we've done. And it's a good time to reflect a little bit. We might not have as much time to do that. I do think things are a little busy right now, but especially as we're heading into that Sagittarius new moon and the solstice that are on deck that I'll talk about next time, I think that moving into a little reflective energy, creative energy, is a great way to use these days. It is interesting the way everything does sort of connect, and connect through that Jupiter too, which is just adding a little peace and love and feeling of safety and security to the mix, that I think is a little bit helpful to attach here my reflections on 2025, because I want, if you enjoyed these videos, I think you would enjoy that one. It sometimes seems not quite as exciting to look back, but there's a lot to be gained from it. So check out that 2025 reflection video, and your horoscopes for December and January on my channel if you haven't already, and be on the lookout from that video from Corinne and I about Saturn Neptune. Okay. I hope you have a wonderful week. Take it easy. Um, have that good light Sagittarius energy supporting you. I don't really see too much in the chat, which is good because I'm having a little trouble with my Wi-Fi signal today. I'm hoping that all of this came through okay. All right. Thank you all. Have a great week.